my speed up. This is the second one I'll be doing for this Lara's adventure, and this one is the Island of Giants. I've been listening to this, and this is one of my favorites. And I've been listening to this in Nike. And so I had a dream about it. I was in a giant bathroom, and then I was stuck, and I became a giant late, and then I decided to explode my Pepsi in a bathroom. So let's read this one. Isha struggled across the bus city square under the weight of her backpack. She had been bringing a lot lately about geography and was bringing about 12 books of faraway places all over the world. Actually, she had 11 books in her bag and was reading the end of the 12th while she walked, being sure to look up at least once in a while to watch where she was going. Isha looked up again and suddenly jerked to a stop. She shook her head and rubbed her eyes vigorously. But it can't be, she said out loud. Laying there on the edge of Bow City Square, red and partly chewed on one end, was the biggest pencil that Isha had ever seen. It was perhaps the biggest pencil the world had ever seen. This was big news. When Isha arrived at the Bow City Museum, her face red from running with all her books, she found the rest of the Zolaros already there, sitting around a table and talking excitedly. Did you all see the giant pencil too? Added Isha. So there's also a giant pencil, answered Rue. I only heard about the huge teacup that showed up in Russia. There was also a gigantic bicycle found in Icebo, added Oscar. Did you hear that a pair of really, really big glasses just appeared in a park in New Zealand? Asked Lottie. That's similar to what I heard, except it was an enormous pair of underwear that fell on a boat near Japan, exclaimed Molly. And I read about a jumbo-sized dog boat washed on the beach in Ghana. Washed up on the beach in Ghana, said Ace. Roof, added Zorro. This is very strange, Lottie mused. I wonder if all these objects have something in common. The Zolaros thought about the mystery. Oscar and Isha just went out to look at the pencil. Ruin and Lottie read news reports to look for clues. Amali and Ace worked on the problem by watching news reports while doing headstands. Oscar and Isha soon returned looking as puzzled as ever. It seems just like the real thing, Oscar reported. I measured it as big as 22 and a half regular pencils. That's what we read too, Lottie exclaimed. The bone and the bicycle are 22 and a half times normal size. The glasses and underwear are also 22 and a half times bigger than they should be. Ace added. Did you say 22 and a half times bigger? Inquired Professor Bard, who had just walked in. The professor was carrying an old book and a chunk of pink stuff. Xena followed, dragging something along the floor that looked exactly like a super-sized bar of rose-rented soap. One of my friends sent out this soap this morning, said Professor Bard. We tested it and it seems exactly like ordinary soap, only much bigger, 22 and a half times bigger in fact. What does it all mean, Professor Bard? Rue and Amali asked exactly at the same time, and they both giggled. I wasn't sure until I heard you say that all the other objects were almost 22 and a half times bigger than normal, he answered, lifting up the old book. But now I think I have a clue for you. This is the journal of a ship's captain who sailed around the world over 20 years ago, explained Professor Bard. Isha, if you wouldn't mind. Isha read, July 13th, 1797, ship's log. Today, a strange event took place on the board since Queen Lenora. We've been in the fog since morning, when suddenly a young sailor and the crews began shouting nonsense and had to be brought down and held by the crew. The poor fellow was in a terror, shouting about a giant swimming in the water of a rocky shore. He believed the giant was 22 and a half times the size of an ordinary man. Naturally, we thought him struck with madness. Still, I took part in the discovery of the Island of Giants to boost the spirits of the crew, who thought it was a fine joke. On the bottom of the yellow page, the captain had written the coordinates of the island. It looks like we've got a clue about what's going on, declared Ace. I can't wait to check this place out, Amali said while doing a backflip. Do you think everything is going to be a giant like all the things we found already? Good question, said Professor Bard. We still don't know why the giant objects are turning up all over the world, but I bet you Zaleros will find out. Oscar, you might want to bring along the hologrow that I gave you last week, suggested Xena. Sure thing, answered Oscar. It's here in my bag. What's a hologrow? Asked Isha. I'll tell you later, Oscar said, but right now I think we should get going. Well, I'm off to have a shower with this super-sized soap, Professor Bard told the Zaleros as they gathered into a circle and said, 4 points of the earth, moon and sun, unite together and become as one. And it's off to the island of giants we go! Are we there yet? Asked Amali. I can't see a thing. The Zaleros had no idea where they had arrived. They were pressed together under something, large and light, like a large piece of cloth that was blocking at the sun. Look closely, everyone, said Isha. It's a giant leaf. Let's get out from under it, said Ace. If we push together, we can get it off of us. 1, 2, 3. Heave! The enormous leaf flew over the group. They were left blinking in the sunshine and staring at the most amazing world they had ever visited. Everywhere they looked, they saw the biggest things they've ever seen. It seems like almost everything was 22.5 times normal size. Look at how big the trees are, exclaimed Lottie. That mushroom is bigger than me, said Rue in disbelief. The trees were so tall they could barely see the tops. Fallen trees covered the ground like throw rugs. A butterfly the size of a small car fluttered past them on the breeze. I sure hope the animals are friendly there, said Amali. I think it's one of the most amazing places we've ever been, added Amali. I can't believe that no one has ever found this place before, whispered Ace, with his voice full of amazement. No one except the sailor whoever thought was crazy, exclaimed Oscar, and they all laughed. The Zaleros walked along, gazing in every direction at the immense world they had discovered. However, it didn't take long for them to get worn out. Their necks were sore from looking up at all the wonderfully huge things they saw, and all the small details they had never noticed before, and they were tired from having had to climb over an immense snail shell that took them almost 20 minutes. Wait, I have an idea, said Amali eagerly, looking at Ace. We need Zoro's help. Right, answered Ace. Come on, Zoro. Grow. Zoro grew all right, but he usually stuffed to the size of an elephant. This time he kept shooting up until he was big as a house. After a tricky climb, the Zaleros were on his back and running along at a great speed. Suddenly they reached a clearing in the forest and Zoro skidded to a stop. There was nothing there. Where they had been gigantic trees and enormous grasses and flowers, ahead of the Zaleros was just a wasteland without the waste. There were no trees, no flowers, and no rocks. It looked like someone had come in and taken away everything bigger than the sand on the ground. What do you think could have caused this? Asked Isha, but she got no answer from the other Zaleros. They were all thinking the exact same thing. Whatever it is, I bet it has something to do with our mystery, Amali finally said in a low whisper. Away into their left was a big hill. Ace told Zoro to climb onto it so they could see all around them and try to find clues to what happened to the empty area. At the top of the hill, Isha stood on Zoro's head and looked out across the landscape. The empty area is a big circle, and I can see the forest far in the distance, she reported. It looks like a crater on the moon. I wonder what caused it. Earthquake! Shouted Amali. Earthquakes don't usually cause craters like this, said Rue calmly. No, I mean there is an earthquake now, Amali exclaimed. Then they all felt it. Even sitting on the huge Zoro, they could feel the ground shaking and trembling underneath them. Zoro got scared and shrank down to the size of a mouse. They ran to Ace's shirt pocket. The Zaleros were left off, falling on each other and stumbling around the ground, which was now shaking violently. Quick, Lottie, we need a bubble, Oscar suggested. Lottie blew bubble, all right. It's absolutely enormous, the biggest she had ever done by far. Giggling gumballs. What a bubble, she said in amazement. As the ground shuddered under their feet, Oscar ties her up to the bubble, then all around of them. Hang on tight, Oscar shouted as they began to float up off the ground. But even as they floated up, the ground below continued to move and rise up higher and higher. This is the strangest earthquake they have ever seen. In fact, this looks like a mountain rising right on the ground. When it says higher and higher, it reminded me of we'll get higher and higher, straight up we'll climb. That's Sammy Hagar for the Dream song by Van Halen. What is that? Exclaimed Isha. What looks suspiciously like the world's biggest hand reached out and snatched the Zolaros from the air. What are you little ones? Asked the mountain in a booming voice. Unfortunately, it wasn't a mountain at all. They were perched in the form of an enormous woman. They had found one of the giants in the island, and she looked angry. You look like people, but why are you so tiny? She asked in a suspicious tone. Hello, giant, answered Ace, leaning against the figure that was taller than he was. We're the Zolaros, and we come here to solve a mystery. But it seems like the giant couldn't hear him. Amali had an idea. She flipped, somersaulted, and clambered onto the giant's arm, over her shoulder and onto the edge of her ear where she sat, and leaned her head to talk to her. You mean the rest of the world is as tiny as you? Asked the giant, listening to Amali in shock. The giant seemed to have calmed down, and Amali helped the rest of the Zolaros climbed up to her shoulder where they could sit and talk more less comfortably, so they had to shout. Turned out the giant's name was Roxy, and she had lived on the island in her entire life. Roxy explained that all the other people on the island were all as big as her, and that she didn't feel like a giant on the land, or she is just the right size. There was an old story about a man who went out swimming in the ocean years ago, Roxy told them. He said he saw a tiny ship like a toy, and there were little men running around on it too. Of course, everyone just thought he was crazy. The Zolaros all looked at each other and laughed. We like our space here on our island, and we live very far apart, so we don't see each other often, Roxy explained. We also like to sleep a lot, which is what I was doing until I felt you walking all over my back. That tickled. Then Roxy stretched and looked around. What happened to the forest? Where's my house? She asked, bewildered. She started to cry. The Zolaros ran to take cover behind her left ear, while teardrops the size of watermelons poured from Roxy's eyes. Don't worry, Roxy, said Lottie, giving her a comforting pat on the earlobe. We don't know what happened here either, but we're going to find out. Whatever did this took everything away, so if we can find the missing things, maybe we can figure out how to fix this mess. It's so funny. Roxy sniffled a bit, then pulled out a quilt-sized handkerchief and then blew her nose the sound of as loud as a minor explosion. We came back from that way, said Ace, pointing. So I think that we should keep going this way to look for clues. Right, sniffled Roxy. I think this will be hard for you to keep up to me through. Do you want to ride? If you put us down, we have our own transportation. Answered Oscar with a laugh. Roxy placed him on the ground. Zoro came back out of Ace's pocket and started to grow again until he was enormous, while all the Zolaros jumped onto his back. It looks like all you tiny kids have at least have a normal-sized dog, Roxy joked. They moved quickly, with Roxy tramping through the forest and Zoro trotting along beside her, carrying the Zolaros. When they reached the end of the empty area, they were back to the gigantic forest. As they moved on, they found another totally empty crater, then Morphos, another clear zone, and another. Whatever had taken Roxy's forest has done it again in few spots too. After a few hours of traveling, Isha suddenly pointed to distance and asked, "What's that?" You have keen eyes for such a little person, Roxy complimented her. It looks like a small building with a big mound of objects. Wait, I think I can see my bathtub. The Zolaros and Roxy decided to sneak up to the building, and the enormous pile of trees, rocks, clothes, furniture, and just about everything imaginable. Look at this, Zolaros, whispered Roxy, lifting them up once again in her giant hand so they could see through the skylight in the large building. Inside the building were all sorts of machines and pieces of equipment designed for who knew what. It looks like some sort of laboratory and machine shop. The machines were large, but they're also strangely the right size for the Zaleros. Not giant at all. Oscar was about to climb through a window to investigate when Zora whimpered and Ace said, "Quiet! Someone's coming!" Two normal-sized men entered the room wearing white lab coats. They looked like scientists. "We finally done it," said one of them happily. "We finally know how to enlarge objects without teleporting them away." "The boss is going to be so excited," said the other. "Come on, let's go tell them good news." And the men hurried off. "More little people!" exclaimed Roxy. "What did they say? You little people all have such tiny voices." "I think they're scientists," Root explained. "And they're trying to build a machine to make things in our world bigger. I bet they took all these objects from the forest and your home to study them." "Ick." "Then they're responsible for all that destruction. We have to stop them," said Lottie. Roxy put them down inside the building. They hurried off the direction the scientists had gone. Through a confusing maze of bright white corridors, Lottie, who was in the lead on her speedy skates, shot around a corner and came to a screeching halt. All the Zaleros ran right into her and ended up in a leap into a heap on the floor. "Well, I guess the Zaleros," sighed a familiar voice. "I guess I should have expected this." Standing over them with her two scientist henchmen was Countess Lucille, looking as fashionable as ever in her striking crimson dress and matching hat. "Must you meddling children interfere in every one of my plans?" she asked them, clearly annoyed. "Well, it doesn't matter this time because the machine is fixed now and it's gonna make me rich beyond my wildest dreams." "Why are you sending giant things all over the world?" demanded Isha. "Oh, that, just a bug with the machine," laughed the Countess. "These lunkhead scientists figured out how to enlarge things, but they were accidentally teleporting them away to who knows where. But now they've got it working and I'm about to turn my gold and jewels into the biggest fortune the world has ever seen." "No, you're not," shouted Amali, "because you're destroying Solid and we're going to stop you." "Not this time, my dears," said Lucille coolly. The Zaleros were about to grab Lucille and tie her up with Oscar's rope when suddenly a giant toothbrush came shooting through the air their direction. "Run!" shouted Amalia as she bounced out of the way. The Zaleros ran as fast as they could down a long corridor and ran out the huge door of a building. Huge objects, an enormous spoon, a big crumpled ball of paper, a jumbo daffodil came shooting after them, crashing into the walls and shaking the ground. "Over here, Zaleros!" shouted Roxy, who was waving to them. They ran to her, and she scooped them up in her big hands and then sped into the forest. Just when they thought it was safe, a piece of celery as big as a flagpole came zooming down and struck Roxy right between the eyes. "What happened?" asked Roxy as she sat up holding her hats. "You were hit by the world's biggest piece of celery," answered Ace. "Luckily, Amali knows first aid and was able to fix you right up." Amali had folded Roxy's giant handkerchief into a bandage and used Lottie's gun to stick it in place on her forehead. "For such little people, they should have a big mean streak," Roxy growled. "I can't wait to grab them and... oh, I feel dizzy." Roxy lay back down, holding her head. "I think she needs a rest," said Amali. "Then we'll have to stop Countess Lucille by ourselves," declared Lottie. "But how?" "I have an idea," said Oscar, holding up a strange device that looked like a projector. "The hologram. That's what Xena gave you before we left," said Isha. "What does it do?" "Xena made the hologram last week to help me," Oscar explained. "I went to do a school presentation about ants, and I thought it would be great to have a holographic projector that could make the ants look really big so anyone in class could see them." "So the hologram can take small things and make them look big, right?" asked Lottie, starting to understand Oscar's plan. "Right," said Oscar. If we could get this picture of something that Countess Lucille wants, and then make a giant hologram of it is outside, I think we should lure her out of the building. Then we could go in and find her machine. What giant thing could make her go outside? Wondered Rue. I saw a diamond ring on the table in that lap, said Isha. Molly read, pivoted and then flipped up to the window ledge. She looked inside a building and did a double backflip with the hat twist and landed silently where it is now dark inside. I'm inside, she whispered into the medallion or wristwatch. Now where's that ring? Isha's face is on the screen. She answered, turn right, now walk about 10 steps. Now left to 20 more steps and you should see it. There on that table. Amali pulled out the hologram and quickly snapped a picture of that ring. What was that flash of what light? Asked a voice from deep inside the building. I'm out of here, whispered Amali as she bounded, leaped, and flipped her way out of the window and ran away. Back at this spot in the forest, Rue tinkered with the hologram. This is going to work perfectly, he said, smiling. Countess Lucille stood staring at the amount of enormous items that they had collected for the research and the huge boulders as they had used to pile everything up. At first she had planned to sell these giant things and that she'd come up with the idea for an enlarging machine. Now she didn't need them. Inside the laboratory, her scientists were starting to make gigantic diamonds, huge lumps of gold, and other gems the size of bowling balls. Lucille could hardly control her happiness at how rich she was about to become. Maybe she could buy herself a new palace. As she turned around to walk back at the lab, she saw something outside the window that made her furious. You ninny said you had fixed that machine, she screeched as she ran to the door. You teleported a giant ring outside. There she goes. That's our cue, whispered Oscar. It's worked like a charm. When they saw Countess Lucille run outside to the huge ring, the Zaleros ran into the building, then down to the corridors to the lab room. When they got there, however, they found the door locked and heard strange noises from coming outside. Inside, Rue, can you crack the combination for this lock? Asked Ace. Sure thing, Rue answered and started punching the buttons furiously. Suddenly, the door flew open. Inside the room were two surprised scientists in the middle of a pile of huge rubies and silver coins. One of the scientists managed to blurt out, How did you... Before they found themselves covered in a pink sticky mess. I still hate to waste good gum, giggled Lottie as she and Oscar tied the pair up into a giant diamond. Where is the enlarging machine? Molly demanded of the two scientists who were now securely tied to a huge ruby. One of them exclaimed. Molly wiped the gum off his face and he shouted, We'll never tell you. If they won't tell us, then we'll have to look, said Rue, and the Zaleros started searching the room for the machine between the huge pieces of money and jewelry laying all around. They couldn't find anything but that looked like a machine that could make anything 20 times bigger. All they found was a small, multicolored colored cube. When the scientists saw the cube, they started to talk about how Countess Lucille would pull out their whole nose hairs for losing the machine. So the cube is the machine, said Rue. It's amazing that something so small could have so much power, exclaimed Ace. Rue tinkered around with the little magical cube until a panel of buttons opened up at one side. He punched the buttons and then announced that he turned the machine off and then locked it with the password. No! Came Countess Lucille's screeching voice from outside. Curse you, Zaleros! I'll be back for my machine! They ran to the front door to see the Countess zooming away on a scooter. She was moving quickly towards a helicopter that was parked at the far end of the clearing. We'll never catch her now, said Lottie. Suddenly, something huge and pink swooped down and caught Lucille right off of the scooter. Gak, disgusting! Shouted Countess Lucille as she was licked all over by the tongue of a gigantic dog. Good boy, Zorro. All the Zaleros shouted together. Now we can make Countess Lucille and her henchmen return everything they stole from this island, said Oscar triumphantly. I don't think we'll have to worry about that, said Isha. Look! At first the others only saw mountains in the distance, but then the mountains came closer and closer. Soon as Dolores could see that the mountains were really dozens of giant men and women all walking towards Lucille. All walking towards Lucille and looking quite grumpy. "My friends are here at last!" exclaimed Roxy, picking up the Zolaris and hugging them with the tremendous fingers. "We can take care of Countess Lucille. Thank you, Zolaris, for all your help. You people are terrific, tiny people." "No worries," said Ace. "We're always happy to help." Back at the museum, the Zolaris were busy telling Xena their story. How, especially the part how her invention, the Hologro, had been used to save the day. "I'm so pleased the Hologro helped," Xena said. "You sure do find yourselves in some pretty amazing situations, don't you?" They all laughed and admitted that it was true. "Now that Countess Lucille's taken care of, we still have the enlarging machine," said Oscar. "I wonder what we should do with it." "Hey, where is that little cube anyway?" asked Isha. "It was right here on the table a few seconds ago." Suddenly, there was a crash, and long wriggling tubes that came streaming into the room like giant octopus arms. "Run!" yelled Molly. "What? No one wants super enormous spaghetti?" called Professor Bard from the kitchen. Q's mouth is close up.